Good morning. My name is Jemima Philippe. And I'm a communication associate with the American Association for the Advancement of Science, obviously. Today we're going to talk about engaging with audiences via social media. Yesterday you guys had a workshop on fundamentals, and while this is going to build on that a bit, it's not going to be repetitive, so don't worry and feel like you're sitting through the same thing twice. And if you didn't get a chance to attend yesterday's workshop, we'll give you a little bit of foundational understanding so you can build on that to talk about the specific medium of social media. And then immediately following this workshop will be one on engaging with policymakers, which then takes the fundamentals and builds it towards engaging with the target audience. Okay, so hope you stick around for that. So we're going to go ahead and define social media, public engagement with science before we tell you how to do it on social media. Public engagement are intentional, meaningful interactions that provide opportunities for mutual learning between scientists and members of the public. What that means is we are not encouraging you to go out and just read your findings or tell people what they should do, right? We're looking for that two-way communication, that conversation between scientists and audiences that both can learn from each other. This is our framework for public engagement. You guys get to be the lucky audience that beta tested for us. We've revised it since about a couple years ago. And so if you have any feedback on it, please let me know so we can continue to improve it. But what we have here is I want you to know that it's a circular process, right? You start with our planning, move to implementation, and then we move to evaluation. And then from evaluation, you can then replan should you learn new things, which we anticipate you will, and continue the cycle of engagement. We're going to go through this piece by piece today, and if you have any questions, please hold them till the end where we can talk. You guys can get up on the mic and ask of us. So, characteristics of social media. Now that we've defined engagement, let's talk about the platform, social media, that we're using to engage. Social media is a space where content is co-created by the users, which means that it's not just one institution or identity that's creating content and pushing it out. Everyone has the opportunity to create content and share with their followers. Users can interact and discuss with other users. So again, it's not the idea of putting a paper out and not being able to contact the publisher or the author. If I put information on social media, everyone can respond and react and engage with me about it, right? And pretty much anyone can participate if you have access, right? This leads to a concept of the daily me. Think of a newspaper in which you choose all of the content. Social media is becoming that through algorithms like Facebook, right? Facebook has now said that they're going to reduce the amount of content you see from people you're not interested in or major organizations, right? Kind of makes it hard for AAAS to put out information and get it in your hands. Because you guys are cultivating all your experiences online, you can choose the things that interest you, and the algorithms will mold content to fit your likes. It can be a bit daunting for scientists to get through that, but the idea is you are people that connect with others all the time, right? So you're more likely now, at this point now, individuals' content is more likely to be seen than one from an institution. So scientists have the kind of responsibility now to share their content and the information and make sure it's getting into the hands and eyes and brains of the publics. That also means that those who do engage have additional responsibility to make their content relatable to audiences so that they will start to fall into the algorithms. It's not impossible to do, but it does take a bit of concentrated effort. So we're in our planning stage, right? We're talking about goals. You have again, like I said, if you guys see a colleague next to you without a headset, could you please advise them that that's how we'll hear today, is through the headsets back there. All right, so we're in our planning session. We're looking at our goals. We ask for your goal up front because it's what orients you into your engagement. It's what kind of motivates you when you get a little frustrated, right? When you remember why you're engaging, you're more likely to continue. Your goals also help to set your evaluation metrics so you can determine if you were successful based on what you define as success. We identify goals as bigger picture goals, like maybe you want to start a Twitter account for your lab, right? Mm-hmm. You want to start a Twitter account for your lab. Maybe you just want people to know what your lab is doing. So that's your bigger term goals. You want to create this space for your entity where people can connect with. And then your shorter term goals would be something like, your individual goals would be like recruiting participants for a citizen science project, like something you want to do specifically. We also define goals as short term and long term. So let's say you created that Twitter account, right? That's your short term. I'm going to accomplish this thing. The longer term goal would be to create a space where you can communicate and that engagements are consistent, right? So we do that. We can identify that by the number of mentions. If people are talking about you on Twitter, that means that they're engaging in your content enough that they recognize that you're there and that your conversations tend to continue. Does that make sense? Nod if it does. All right. When you're setting your goals, I cannot stress this enough, please be realistic. There are a ton of platforms, we're not even identifying all of them here, but number one, you can't be on every platform, right? You can't be on Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and Snapchat and Instagram and be consistently posting and still do your 9 to 5, your day jobs, right? So pick the ones that maybe your audiences are more likely to be checked into. Pick the ones that you feel more confident in being on, right? Also set your goals in terms of, we may not be super users in 6 months. We can't be super influencers or popular opinion leaders in a short amount of time. Be realistic as to what it will take to build that presence online that you want to establish. Not to discourage you, we're all superstars, but social media, when you engage upon it, it's a very deliberate set of actions that you have to take in order to build your success. It doesn't happen overnight for most of us. So last week, we asked our followers on our SciComm account to give a bit of advice for you guys that would be most beneficial and realistic and helpful. And so we asked, hey, SciComm tweeps, we're excited for our social media mini workshop during #AAAS meeting, but we need your help. What advice would you give to someone who is just starting out on social media? Okay, and this is what they had to say. Leslie Minton said, you don't have to be on every platform. Find what works for your goals and focus your energy there. Also, audience engagement is greater than numbers. A small but engaged group is more valuable than a large disengaged group. And then Speak Up for Blue said, my advice would be to 1, post consistently. 2, provide interesting content. 3, engage with people. Don't just put information out. And 4, be responsive. Dr. Mike said, engage! Reach out to new people and show interest in the work they're doing. Offer to help in some form or another, be that simply retweeting, offering a helpful tip, or replying with a funny and relevant GIF, and I use a hard G, you can fight me about it if you want, but people will appreciate it, right? The overlying theme is be present, be engaged, be consistent. Think about, you guys probably all have that one friend who only texts you when they want something, only reaches out when they're upset and their life is in shambles, only reaches out when they want to talk to you. They never ask how you're doing. Don't be that friend on social media. Don't be the one who is only putting information out and never asking for information back, or never checking in with your followers to see how they're doing or what they're working on, or you don't retweet them. All you do is ask for their support. You can see in real life how annoying that would be to be that friend or have that friend. So make sure that you're not that friend on social media. This is our case study. This is Sylvie. She's one of our 2017-2018 Leshner Fellows. She's a professor at the University of Northern Kentucky, I believe, in the School of Pharmacy. And Sylvie is my favorite case study because she was terrified of social media this time last year, right? And in June, we had our training, and I run our social media workshop for our fellows as well. I do all things social media. And I just told Sylvie, listen, just try it out, right? Give it a shot. You never know what could happen. She didn't even have a smartphone, guys. She was tweeting from her computer, but she trusted me, and she signed up for Twitter. And in the end of July, she posted out, who wants to help with my program? SciCats is the program that she does to reach out to K through 12 students in Kentucky to expose them to science and biology and to give them a chance just to learn about something new. And then by mid-August, someone volunteered boxes and boxes of supplies for her lab for free. They just sent it to her. And I'm sure she would have found another way to get money eventually or get help, but Twitter helped her to just immediately get thousands of dollars of supplies by just asking for support. And not everyone's gonna get that kind of reaction, right? But it's likely, it's possible, it can happen if you just give it a shot. And now Sylvie has more followers than I do on Twitter. She bought a smartphone, she's well engaged online. She found that Twitter was just right in her lane of things that she could accomplish every day consistently and benefit from. So there's a wealth of other platforms. Not that Twitter is going to be the one for everyone, but give something a shot because it could end up really beneficial to you and to your work. So this is our Meet a Scientist account. It's our goal setting for our own personal account, or our professional account. So our vision statement, aka our goal, is that Meet a Scientist will act as a hub for people interested in science, communication, and public engagement. Through this feed, the AAAS Center for Public Engagement will drive traffic to its websites, increase interest in its events, programs, and workshops, solicit nominations for awards, and interact with event attendees as a back channel. That's a lot. What it means is that we intend to be the space for public engagement and communication among scientists, practitioners, and we'll get to our audiences, but our goal is that we are a space where public engagement kind of lives and breathes, where we can show examples and give content related to it. We can also be a place for things like the annual meeting when we want to tweet about Family Science Days and tell you what's going on. It becomes a back channel for those kind of events. Our goal is very detailed, but it's not limiting, right? We still have space to define how we will get to these points in our goal, but we don't prescribe everything. So when you start to think about your own goals, what is it you want to accomplish? What do you want your audience to do? Not just what you want to have happen, what do you want your audience to actively engage in doing as a result of meeting or speaking or interacting with you? How can you integrate social media into your workload? This is part of that be realistic. Yes, we all want to be social media phenoms, right? But how in your workday can you anticipate that you'll have time to tweet? What is the content that you'll be sharing online? And is that realistic for what you think you yourself can accomplish? You guys have your worksheets, and we're gonna kind of breeze through it, but we've given you the worksheet as a space for you to work these things out. And we can, if you have any specific questions, please hold them to the end, but we can talk about these, and I'm also available afterwards to have a chat about it. We're gonna move past that though. We're gonna get now to audiences, if we ever click. So in our planning stage, we're now in the audience section. This is where we want you to think about the kinds of audiences you want to engage with, the kinds of audiences you want to impact upon or have change or a powerful impact upon them, right? What are the audiences you would like to reach? Tell you a bit about American audiences. This is from a Pew 2015 research study, Pew Research Institute. 2 out of 3 Americans use at least one form of social media. That's a lot of people that you could be reaching via social media. Also, 6 out of 10 Americans get their news from social media. So not only are they on social media, they're intentionally seeking information there. You can see that by leaps and bounds, 4 out of 5 Americans are on Facebook, right? Actively or passively, they didn't define, but they have a Facebook account. The rest of the platforms seem a bit piddly in comparison, but if you look at Twitter, we know that on Twitter, most people are actively seeking news there. So while you may have a greater population on Facebook, when you're looking for people who are active audiences, you may find them on Twitter. And Pew has a ton of research about social media and American audiences, so it would really be beneficial to you guys once you start to decide who you want to pursue to look to see where they are according to Pew research. And if you have a bit of trouble trying to figure out which platform to use, we have this concept called the irreducible element. Each platform tends to gravitate towards one kind of content. So if you look at something that's specifically text heavy, if you want to do long form text, you can look at Reddit or LinkedIn or Trello, which is AAAS's dialogue platform, right? If you're looking to post primarily photos, Flickr or Pinterest are good places for that, as their content is image-based. If you're looking to post videos, obviously YouTube by leaps and bounds. Also there's Vimeo and Periscope, which is Twitter's video platform. So think of if your audience is looking to maybe see a day in the scenes of your lab, right? Or whatever kind of work you're doing, if your audience would like to follow along through video, you may be best suited to create an account on one of those platforms. But if you look at the overlap, there are certain super platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr that allow for all 3 kinds of content. So maybe your audiences are at those places. It may behoove you to create an account there. But not only thinking of the content that you like to create, always remember the kind of content your audience is looking for and the places your audience will congregate. That'll really affect your ability to be effective in those spaces. So for our audiences on Meet a Scientist, we identified scientists, public engagement researchers, public engagement practitioners, and potential event attendees. Right? So scientists looking for opportunities to engage or looking for ways in which to build their public engagement skill set. Then we have public engagement researchers looking to connect with those scientists and with practitioners to advance their research. Then we also have public engagement practitioners looking to advance their practice by connecting with researchers and scientists. And then we have potential event attendees who go, these people know about science. They probably know about things that are happening in my area. Let me check with them to see where I can have some fun science activity. For our own demographic, and Twitter provides this information for everyone, not just for institutional accounts, but you can see that our followers tend to skew a bit female in the millennial age range and tend to work more in a professional or technical setting, right? Not that this tells us everything we can know about our audiences, but it gives us a great segmentation so we can start to learn more about that group. Like I said, everyone has access to this information through their own Twitter accounts. You just check your analytics. Oh, you're trying to take a picture of that? One more time. So, when you start to think about your audience, who do you want to engage? Who are you currently engaging? What do you know about them? You can think of the easy things: demographic, culture, age, gender, location, ethnicity, level of understanding or level of experience with your topic, right? Those are ways to start to think about your group so you can then craft the messaging toward them down the road. Now we're going to talk about identity, which is huge for social media, right? Your identity determines how you present yourself, how people will receive you, how they will trust you, how they will interact with you online over time. So we have the concept of a personal versus professional Twitter account, which we've merged into professional. My Twitter account is professional. It's a word that you will hate, but you will start to think and it'll make sense to you, I promise. I combine elements of my professional life, but right before this workshop, I tweeted a picture of myself, bundle of nerds getting ready for this, right? But it's also my personal, so I talk about things that interest me. I talk about adolescent health. I talk about fun things on TV or articles that I read. It's just #1 change. If you'd like to check it out, you're welcome to. I talk about a lot of the SciComm work that we're doing now that I'm in this space. I talk about that. I also manage institutional accounts, so Meet a Scientist. That's an account that I tweet from about our family science days and about the engagement activities that we have and are aware of. I also tweet from @_SciComm, which is our more research-based, workshop-based, kind of instructional account, and they have very divergent audiences, different intentions for these accounts. So imagine I have 1 professional and 2 professional accounts. I'm always on Twitter. Something to think about is, how's your identity different? Even if you have multiple Twitter accounts, which you can, how will your identity differ on these platforms that make it so that you have to have these multiple accounts? Think about how your identity is on Facebook versus Twitter. Maybe your Facebook is your personal and you only connect with your family and your friends and you post pictures of yourself you want your colleagues to see, right? Maybe Twitter is your professional. So just things to think about as you start to craft your social media identity. You can also think about establishing credibility, right? Let's say you do decide you want to have a professional account. How will you identify yourself so people know the kind of professional you are? For example, we have Tessa Hill, who's one of our inaugural Leshner Leadership Fellows, and she studies climate change and like the historical context of climate change, right? You can tell that directly from her profile. She also is a professor at UC Davis. She's establishing her identity as an educator, right? It gives a little bit of extraness to her credibility. She's a #PCase employee. If you didn't know what PCase was, you could click on that. Hashtagging is an indexing term that will link all the tweets relevant to that hashtag together so you can deduce what it means. I'll make it easy for you. PCase is the Presidential Early Career Award for Science and Engineering. She's important. She's a big deal, guys, right? And then she's also saying, see more at hashtag or @sci_sisters. She's saying, I have another account and from which I tweet, which you can learn more about me and maybe a different segment of my interests. So her profile is very, very concise. It tells you exactly what you need to know about her. Sometimes what people will do is say tweets do not equal endorsement. They want to separate themselves from the things they tweet, say we're not necessarily endorsing them. Or they may say tweets are my own, which means, yes, I work at UC Davis, but my tweets don't represent my organization. Not that people always acknowledge that, but it's a good way to kind of give yourself a little bit of distance if you want to establish a certain identity for yourself. And Dr. Anna Scott, she is a professor scientist, but also a baker. So what she does is she brings science to people in a way that maybe they would not have interacted with it otherwise. She baked a cake that looks pretty cool, right? So maybe you're just into pastries and you stumble across her Twitter profile, but now you're learning something about science too, or maybe you're into science and you stumble across her Twitter profile and now you're learning that science can be artistic as well. She's merging a couple of different audiences and she intentionally does so through her profile and through the ways in which she tweets. So for media scientists, our identity, the way that we define ourselves, is that we are conversational, we are approachable, we are informative, we're institutional, and we're community building. We're building a community around public engagement. The ways that we don't want to identify ourselves are frivolous, or off topic, or condescending, or questionable, or exclusive. We don't want people to feel like, if I don't understand public engagement or SciComm, I can't be a part of this community. No, we're bringing you in so you can understand. And if you check our media scientist account, we hope you can let me know if we're not meeting these criteria. So, this is the part where I want you to spend a bit of time thinking of your identity on social media. Do you have different platforms and different purposes for each platform? And should your identity be different on different platforms? Sometimes people say, no, I am who I am in every context, and you'll just have to deal with me, right? Some people say, I'm professional here, but my family doesn't care about this. Maybe I need to be in a different space on Facebook so my family can connect with me and see pictures of my kids, right? What is important to you? What is your goal, right? We go back to that goal that we talked about earlier. What's your intention for being on these platforms? That can help you decide how you should present yourself. Let's talk about Twitter. So, Twitter, like I said, it may not be the most populated platform, but it's where we have the most engaged users. So when you use Twitter, click. You can see that 23% of American adults are on Twitter, but when you look at 67% of them are now looking for news. Last year it was 50%, right? It just keeps going up. So the idea is that Twitter is a really good place for scientists to share their work and talk about their latest discovery and any kind of content they want to, because Twitter users are the most active users. So I'll talk about hashtags. Remember I mentioned hashtag PKs? Hashtagging is a way that you can index your content so that if someone, let's say hashtag Justin Bieber, wanted to see all things about the Biebs, right? You would check that hashtag and see what everyone's saying. Maybe there was a sighting, right? A sighting in your neighborhood. Maybe he's at the meeting, right? You can see that those kind of things because they're hashtagged and consolidated in a space so you can find them. What I've learned is that Twitter you don't have to use a hashtag to be affiliated with the hashtag. You can use a word and Twitter will still find it, but it's a more direct way to index through hashtagging. So this hashtag was one of the funny ones that popped up maybe a couple weeks ago, was Review for Science, where scientists could show their reviews that they posted for items on Amazon that weren't science related. So someone used a pillowcase, I think, to gather animals in their lab and kind of transport them somewhere, and they wrote down, it was a sturdy pillowcase and it really did not break when I had all these heavy animals in it, right? And it's just a fun, funny way that scientists are finding ways to engage with each other on social media. Another element of identity is conversation. Like I said, don't be the friend who only gives information. You have to be the friend who checks in as well. This is Mike Brown. He's one of the scientists who is responsible for demoting Pluto, right? He has about 40,000 followers at least on Twitter, and he still finds time to answer questions that people post to him. At Pluto Killer is his handle, and so someone mentioned him at Pluto Killer, how many other objects might be discovered during the search, and he just took time to answer it. Why? Because his followers probably also have that question. So in addressing this question, he's probably helping a ton of his followers out, and you don't have to respond to every person. You know, Twitter is vast and it's 24 hours. You don't have time. You also don't have to respond to every troll, right? Silence is an answer in its own. So when we say have conversations, we mean have conversations that are meaningful and effective and in alignment with the goal that you've set. Relationships are important on Twitter. So there's an idea of an influencer, and that's one person who has a lot of followers. So imagine if you have 100 followers, but the influencer has 10,000 followers, and you want to get your message to a greater group, right? Any kind of conversation from the influencer, any kind of relationship you build with an influencer is likely to get your message retweeted or quoted or shared with a greater audience than your own. And so the idea is you want to find those influencers in the spaces that are important to you. A lot of our Leshner Leadership Fellows are influencers in infectious disease or in food and water security or in climate, right? So we reflect a lot of their messages, they retweet a lot of ours and share it with their audiences. Our director, Emily, is a huge Twitter influencer, and she has a ton of very, very engaged followers. So a lot of the stuff that we post from Media Scientists, she retweets, and the audience grows. You can see here at NASA Earth. So Leonardo DiCaprio retweeted one of the tweets from one of the climate assessments groups. And imagine he has like over 2 million followers, right? So not that group was unpopular. They probably had a couple thousand of their own, but now their messaging has gone out to over 2 million people potentially. So up top is a retweet. Down below is a quote tweet. that's when you can provide your own input on someone else's content, so both of your pieces go out to your followers. So Megan Duffy tweeted about, she was giving acknowledgement to one of her colleagues, right? And then the American Naturalist quoted that, and now both sets of followers get the messaging. Make sense? Nod if yes. All right. So what hashtags would you use? There's scientists who selfie, there's 365 scientists. Those are meant to humanize scientists. There's actual living scientists. There's Black women in STEM. There's a ton of hashtags that you can find. I would say to spend a few minutes looking at the conversations that are relevant in the spaces you want to occupy and maybe jumping in on those hashtags. Something I will say is to please avoid using a hashtag in a way that's not relevant to the content. I liken it to going to a particular health issue conference and yelling about another health issue. We're at diabetes, what about cancer, right? No, don't be that person that just occupies a space because there are people there. Occupy the space because it's relevant to you and to your audience. Please do not be that person. I cannot stress that enough. Now we're in messaging. This is the part where you think about your goal. What is it you want to accomplish? You think about your audience. Who do you want to reach? Your messaging will be how you reach them, how you speak to them, how you address them, how you connect with their concerns. Your messaging is really important so that the group that you're trying to reach can understand what you're saying. So AAAS advise that you make your messages miniature, meaningful, and memorable. All right? I fisted, but it's fine. You know what I meant. This is a perfect example of a tweet that follows a 3M standard. It's miniature. You only have 280 characters. You can't go past that, right? It's meaningful. It's a story. It's talking about a star that we thought it was dead, but it has a pulse, right? There's a story there. It's memorable because it evokes a bit of emotion, right? Like, oh, tell me more. Thought it was dead too. It's not dead. And NASA did this on Halloween, which is one of those meaningful holidays for a lot of Americans, right? We resonate with that and we click on that. At the time of posting, immediately after, they had about 1,000 retweets and 2,500 likes, which means that people either shared it or enjoyed it. But I'm pretty sure if you go back and check that tweet now, the numbers are exponential. Share images, guys. Images are a great tool of messaging because they consolidate a lot of information into one space. So you can see the different phases, you can see the time, the duration, you can also get an understanding of what's happening through just an image, and you wasted no tweets doing that, no characters. Also, think about ways that you can translate really complex information into something people can understand. I'm pretty sure "don't worry, bees are happy" is way more effective than "unexpected rewards induce dopamine-dependent positive emotion like state changes in bumblebees," right? You can see which one would be most effective, especially on Twitter when characters are at a high real estate. Jargon, please think about the jargon you use. In the last slide, you saw a ton of jargon that didn't even tell you what was going on if you weren't aware of the status of bumblebee dopamine receptor status, right? So we try to avoid a lot of jargon in our tweets. This is one that I tweeted for Meet a Scientist about one of our exhibitors. We can't send you to space during FAMSI days, but ISS CASAS has the next best thing, right? Very easy language to understand. We didn't get very technical. We included a picture to say this is what is actually happening, right? Because ideas, we want to be relatable. We want to connect to our audiences. They may not have this frame of reference to know exactly what happens at a space station. If I got very technical, I would lose a lot of people, and kids would definitely not come, right? So we're going to draft a tweet about your work. Can't do that now, but normally this is when you would take your time to write 280 characters about something important to you. You can do that later. I'll be at the Share Your Science booth. You can come over and show me there. I would love to see them. But think about this. When you draft a tweet, use 23 characters just for that link in your tweet. So then you subtract 280 minus 23. That's how many characters you have left if you include a link in your tweet. We also have an engagement opportunity, Share Your Science. It's my baby. It's my annual meeting baby, which over at the other end of the exhibit hall where you can record a 2-minute video. And we will help you craft your goal audience message. We'll help you identify your group that you're reaching and the way in which it's best to reach them. It's kind of taking the concept of social media and our foundations and applying it to just another kind of platform. So we're in the evaluation stage. We're running a bit out of time, so I may breeze through this a bit, but you can see that there's different applications to help you measure your effectiveness. We can measure your effectiveness on social media. TweetDeck is what I use because I manage multiple accounts, and it also tells me who's following, who's responding, who's sending me DMs. It gives me a way to gauge the communication between me and my audience. Hootsuite is another tool. You can use that across multiple social media platforms, whereas TweetDeck is exclusively for Twitter. Hootsuite, you can manage your Instagram, your Facebook, and your Twitter accounts to post content across multiple platforms. They also give you a bit of metrics and assessment of your group. But Hootsuite, I believe you do have to pay for after a trial period, so I use the free TweetDeck. So to measure your impact, we can look at things like replies. Replies are people who have seen your content and wanted to have a conversation with you. So when they reply to you, they tell you, hey, I like that. Hey, I didn't like that. This was interesting. But it's a connection that they have between you and them, and you can see it on the timeline sometimes, but it's really intended to be a direct response to something you posted. A retweet means, this is interesting, I want to share it with all of my followers. When someone retweets your content, it's then shown to everyone in their follower list as well. And then a like is just a little heart that they place next to your, in your tweet to go, I really liked your content, right? People don't necessarily see who's liked what all the time, but it's really a way for them to tell you, I enjoy this, probably post more of that, right? So this is where you think about the next 2 or 3 things you'll do with your social media. What is it you want to accomplish? How will you know if you're successful? Will it be that you have a lot of retweets? Will it be that you have a lot more followers? I would say put some metrics around that. 10% increase in retweets, right? That means that 10% more people thought you were more important this month than last month, right? 10%, 25% increase in followers. More people have shared your content with their friends or stumbled across your content and decide, I want to keep seeing from this person. That is a very powerful tool to determine if your content is reaching audiences that are relevant to you. Maybe you're looking at number of quote tweets. How many people saw what I said and had something to say, so they added to it and shared it with their followers? I can't tell you what social media metric is most effective in determining how successful you are. That's really up to you to decide what it is that's most important to you. So now we're talking about different kinds of public engagement opportunities. Just kind of breeze through, let you know what's happening at the meeting. So we have our workshops. Yesterday was fundamentals. Today, obviously, is social media, and after this will be policy. But we also offer these workshops as 3-hour sessions that we bring to institutions to really walk scientists through and spend a bit more time unpacking all the different components. We also have Family Science Days happening over here today and tomorrow. This is our hallmark public engagement activity. We're kind of putting our money where our mouth is in a way and saying we're creating a space for scientists to engage with audiences. We're bringing everyone here together so you guys can have the fun that we know you'll have. I keep saying after this one is the Policymakers Workshop. It seems to be a very hotly attended and discussed workshop. People want to know how to talk to their policymakers. I get it. So if you stick around at 11:30, we'll start that. We also have our networking reception tonight. So if you're really interested in public engagement and want to meet others who are also interested in public engagement, come to Salon J in the Hilton tonight at 6:30, and we'll have a fun time. Okay. Sideline is the new project that we've launched at AAAS, which we're connecting journalists to scientists. And the idea is if you're on a deadline, if you need an expert for something, you can reach out to Sideline. And our scientists have volunteered their time and their availability to help you, help journalists to get that information. So we have more accurate scientific information and other research in the media that we publish. And the Force for Science Toolkit, we created Force for Science as a direct result to the annual meeting, to the March for Science. We recognized that there was a momentum being built and scientists needed a space to collaborate and reach out to others who are looking to advocate. So Force for Science, it connects communities. It has a space to have conversations, to share research. I would definitely advise you guys to check it out. And the website is at the bottom. And then Trellis. Trellis is AAAS's platform for communication among scientists. It's invitation only still at this point, but if you send an email to, or you go to that website, you can send your email. If you go to that website, you can send information so that you can join Trellis and start the conversations. There's a public engagement with science group on Trellis, of which we're all, our team's part as members, and this is where people just have conversations about public engagement, maybe collaborating on a different engagement or getting help and support for the engagements that they're planning. And that is it. We have time for questions, as promised. If you guys take the survey, AAAS.org/workshop-survey, we'll send you this presentation as a thank you for giving us a little bit of feedback about the workshop that you had. So if nothing else, I open it to questions. You guys can come to the mic to ask, and I'll put my headset on so I can hear as well.
So, is that on? All right. I think I get your professional idea.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure I'm going to adopt that word. But I'm more interested in this idea of your personal account versus your organizational account.
Mm-hmm.
I have an organization. I have my own account. How do we, I'm sure it's just like a faculty member with their lab or their institution or something. Do you end up tweeting on both? Are you doing separate? I'm not worried about, my personal life, professional life, but how do you do that distinction? Which one am I tweeting from here? I'm at AAAS, but my organization's all about science. Which, how do you thread that needle?
For me, because it's something I actually struggle with.
Yeah, you do it like it
So,
is your tweeting for the organization.
Well,
the
difference in a personal and a professional account, what I've seen is that it's more how your audience receives you. And so for a personal account, when I tweet from my personal account, people are likely to have a conversation with me. I'm not beholden to the kind of rules and regulations of my institution, right? From an institutional account, people don't really have conversations as much as they look for information from it. So when I decide what's to post on my personal versus my professional account, I look at what is the content people would need and need from AAAS, right? So for meet a scientist, they're looking for public engagement related things, right? And so they're not necessarily gonna talk back to me and say, thank you for that information, but they're gonna go, this organization that I trust is supporting this event that I think I might wanna attend. If Jemima, the individual, tweeted from Just One Change about an event, people may or may not take it as seriously or give it the respect that an institutional tweet may have. So it's really what does your audience respect most? Are they gonna respect an individual talking about this content or the institution? If it's an institution, you probably want to tweet from that because it's something that we want to give its due respect to.
So if you're doing it via your organization or your lab, that's not going to be the real conversational. That's just more pushing out.
That's what I've experienced.
And it's not supposed to be all one way, but I see what you're saying in that context. It is just outward flow.
And we do our best to ask questions of our audience. We do some polls that they can give feedback, but audiences don't tend to respond directly to institutions in the way that we would like them to. So we're still trying to find different ways to engage them and get them to talk back to us as an institution in the ways that they do when we're individuals. But people don't tend to do that. So we're now we've experimented with polls, and polls have been really successful because you're just giving your opinion in one click, right? You don't have to type out everything you think. You can just agree or disagree, and that seems to be getting a bit more conversation started. And I always leave a other poll option and tell me what you mean in the comments. So that's the way that I'm getting people kind of pulling them out and getting them to give me a little bit more feedback versus just, what do you think about public engagement? That's not working as well for us. But what do you think about media interviews or social media or in person? You know what I'm saying? What do you think about those? And then what else do you think about? What other kinds of activities are you doing? When you ask those pointed questions, that's how they tend to respond back to your institution.
Cool, thanks.
No problem.
I'm going to be that person that everybody hates at a conference that just gives a comment instead of asking a question.
I take feedback.
But a great way to both increase your own number of followers as well as engage with a broader group is on Twitter. I don't know about other platforms, but there are curated accounts that either for a day or for a week, you can sign up to curate their account. And depending on what you do, there is I Am SciComm, which is a different science communicator every week. There is Real Scientists, which is a different scientist. There is a brand new account that's Explain Like 5 for people who want to talk about their science for a day in very, very basic approachable terms. Different fields have one. There's neurotweeps if you're a neuroscientist, biotweeps for biology. If you speak German, there's Real Scientist DE. And so these accounts you can sign up for, you can take over for a week, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, you can engage with a whole group of people that you might not have been able to reach otherwise. And quite often they'll end up following you back to your own account if they like what you tweet during that week. So that's also a thing to think about in terms of engagement and reaching new people.
Yeah, that's like Twitter 201, you know what I mean? Like that's the advanced level, right? Once you get the basics, you start to figure out ways that are really interactive. We actually did a couple of, we call them ROKers, or Twitter takeovers, last week to build momentum for the Family Science Days. So if you look on our Meet a Scientist account, you'll see like Kate is one of the Fun with Chem. And she just took her interns, gave them their phone, gave them her phone, and let them follow her around the lab and did cool experiments on Twitter to like build a buzz, right? I'll say that please be careful who you trust with your Twitter password, right? You want to make sure that you give, like we give everyone a briefing as to what our image is, what our identity is, what kinds of things we can and cannot tweet from a AAAS standpoint, and then we let them run with it. We don't constrain them too much, but we give them a set of parameters so that we don't get in trouble, right? But the takeovers are a great way to get a new audience over to your page, but also get that person a new set of exposure as well. When you do a takeover, I would say to make sure that you have enough content to cover a period of time. What you don't want is a takeover with 3 tweets, right? You want a takeover that's interactive, that's engaging. I like to plan a bit more tweets around lunchtime when everyone's not looking at their computers anymore, they're on their phones, maybe during the morning commute or after at the end of the day. So like be really deliberate and intentional about the times when you're trying to get that buzz on your takeover so people can really pay attention to it. But takeovers they're a great tool for building audiences and just getting new, refreshing content. Also, it's a day where you don't have to plan your content because someone else will do it. Question?
Hi. So I really appreciated the talk. Some of us work at places where we absolutely cannot speak on behalf of our institutions. I work for the government.
Yeah.
Cannot do that. But that being said, my personal interest exists in the same space as my professional interest, and I wasn't sure if you had any advice on how to navigate your own professional or your own personal Twitter account with those concerns in mind.
Number one, I would make sure that establishing a Twitter or a social media account is not in violation of your organization. We've worked with a couple of customers who they could absolutely not tweet anything at all. They just had to not. And that's the choice of their employment, right? But make sure, I would also double check to make sure the guidelines of your institution so that you know kind of what your boundaries are, like we set with our takeovers. And then, like I said, some people put tweets do not equal endorsement. I do not represent this organization. Tweets are my own, right? And not that that's like a legally binding disclaimer, but it does help to separate yourself from the organization. And it gives you kind of like a scapegoat to say, I said I didn't mean it. You know what I mean? So I would just say be very cognizant. I mean, Twitter's public, it's forever. It doesn't go away. Even when you delete a tweet, there's a cache. People can always find it. So just be smart about the things you're tweeting. Make sure you're not tweeting against your organization or giving them a reason to question your commentary. But always double check with your institution to make sure that what their rules are for engaging via social media before you get in trouble. Got time? Anything else? If not, you guys are free. I'm around until 11:30. If you have any questions or want to speak one-on-one, I would advise you to come back to our policy session. It's going to be really fascinating. We have someone who works on the Hill coming in to help and support. So if nothing else, you guys are free. Please remember to turn your headsets in the back.